Jackie Cahill to discuss the lack of insurance cover affecting rural pursuits.
Come on, good last count caller. Minister, usually when we talk about insurance in this chamber, it's about the cost of insurance and escalating cost of insurance. And in the questions to the Taoiseach in the last session in this House this evening, I raised a question where the cost of injury claims are coming down, and the cost of insurance should correspondingly come down, and we had a discussion on that. But this is a situation where sectors are unable to get any insurance cover, and we've seen this creeping into the activity sector, the sporting activity sector, in the last couple of months, where water sports activities, activity parks, water parks, have failed to get insurance. One in my own county in Drummondere had to close because of a lack of insurance. We're now told that ice rings, for the winter period, won't get insurance, and we see an increasing number of sporting activities failing to get insurance cover, irrespective of the cost. And now we see this stretching into the equestrian area. In the last weekend, 2 pints had to be cancelled because of lack of insurance. The equestrian sector, the hunting sector, we have 100 packs in this country, and we had only one insurance provider, and they have now withdrawn from the area. So, as you know, the insurance for hunting packs comes to an end at different for different packs will be at different stages. Those hunts will not be able to have any activity, and consequently, Pint to Pints, which operate under our umbrella, will not be able to operate either. And aside from the recreational aspect of these sports, this is a hugely important business. It's the cornerstone of our national hunt industry, and hugely important both financially and to rural Ireland. I suppose we've had the disruption with COVID, which put the national hunt breeding under extreme pressure, and we had pint to pint racing cancelled for a number of months. And thankfully, we got that racing resumed. But a second winter of disruption to our activities would be hugely economically damaging. It's the shop window where our young horses are shown and able to be sold, whether it is to buyers here at home or to the UK or further afield. And that would impact on the sales of younger horses all through the year. So look, it's imperative that the government comes up with a solution to this crisis, and a crisis it is. As I said, we've often been in this chamber arguing about the cost of insurance, but this is a completely different aspect, where various sectors of sporting activity are unable to activate insurance at any price. There was a very substantial claim awarded on the hunting fields in the last couple of months, and that is the reason we put forward for the insurer leaving the field. And that claim, that accident actually happened in my own county, and the rider was very severely injured, and a substantial, I understand, a substantial payout was received, and a man with a young family, and he was going to have a lot of costs the rest of his life. But we cannot have a situation where vital sectors, whether it is a business with water activities or any recreational activity which involves activity, is going to be left without insurance cover. And as I said, the equestrian industry is hugely important to all parts of the country, and we have to come up to a solution with this, Minister. And we just can't have insurance company cherry-picking what they insure. And I'm not saying insurance at any cost, because obviously no business can afford that. But surely we can have a regulator that would say that have a reasonable cost in relation to the claims that have been paid out over a number of years, and that insurance companies, to allow to be operating in this country, would be forced to give a quote at a reasonable cost to all sectors.
Minister
At the outset, I want to acknowledge the issue raised by Deputy Jackie Cahill here this evening regarding the insurance cover for rural pursuits. Ireland's unique natural amenities play a key role not only from an economic perspective, but more importantly serve to enrich the quality of life in communities across the country. Accordingly, I do not take the challenges regarding both the accessibility and affordability of insurance for outdoor pursuits likely. And the case here really is about the accessibility, no access, and the issue of affordability has not featured in the debate because this is a particular issue regarding availability of insurance. However, and it is important that I do make the point that there is no single policy or legislative initiative which the government can take to persuade insurers to provide cover for any particular sector or industry. Moreover, the government nor the central bank can interfere in the provision or pricing of insurance products, nor do we have the power to direct insurance companies to provide cover to specific businesses or individuals. The legal position is reinforced by the EU Solvency Directive framework directly on this issue. The only situation in Ireland that I can think of where people have a legal right to, or legal obligation to get insurance is for motor insurance in the private motor sector, and in those cases there is a process called the decline cases which have to be dealt with, and a person must be given a quote, albeit the price will depend on the risk involved. But that is the only element in Irish society where companies can be forced, or the industry can be forced, to provide insurance, and that's in the motor insurance area. Notwithstanding this, we continue to prioritise insurance reform, and the work is progressing right across government departments on the timely implementation of all the actions outlined in the Action Plan for Insurance Reform. As deputies will be aware, the first Action Plan implementation report was published in July, shows significant progress with 34 of the 36 actions contained therein completed, with work underway on the remaining. As part of my intensive stakeholder engagement on the reform agenda, I have for my part met with many groups to discuss the difficulties in obtaining insurance. Currently, I am aware of the exit of a number of UK leisure insurance from the Irish market, and it would affect maybe the areas that the Deputy did refer to, whether it's ice rinks or some water sports as well. And I know he mentions here the issue in the hunting and the point-to-point races, which is a separate issue. Therefore, I do believe that the personal injuries guidelines, which are a key element of the action plan, which were delivered ahead of schedule, once they come to be fully implemented across all the cases before it, it will lead to a reduction in the cost of claims, which will, in its own right, help attract people back into the sector to provide policies where they've been slow to do so at the moment. Early indications are that the reductions as a result of this have resulted in a 40% reduction in the cost of those claims, and that's a very significant issue. It is disappointing for me to hear the difficulties in obtaining insurance cover is affecting rural pursuits. It was brought to my personal attention last week with one of the major brokers in the area, and who had mentioned it to the department a few days earlier. So this issue has been brought to my attention only in recent days, and I want to assure the House that Minister Donoghue and I will continue to hold insurers to account on previous commitments that they have made in this area. Key element will be bringing in the law on occupiers' liability and the duty of care, and the Minister for Justice is advancing this, and it will come before the House shortly. So I do want to say I recognise the issues, and I want to listen further to the particular cases that the Deputy is referring to, and I'd like to comment them on my next opportunity in a few moments.
While I appreciate the Minister's answer, we haven't got weeks to sort this issue. This issue needs to be sorted immediately. And we had something similar in access to rural Ireland a number of years ago, where landowners were extremely concerned about their liability to people using their land for recreational purposes. And there was a satisfactory solution got for that, where the liability was taken away from the landowner. We need something similar in this case, and I would suggest that the notion of a waiver by participants in activities be examined by the government, and that if a person signs a waiver of any liability to apply to them, that would be taken on board by the insurance company to absolve them of any liability to a claim. And I think when an adult is participating in an activity, I think we should seek and that idea be advanced immediately. That if the participant signs a waiver, that takes away any potential liability that may incur. As I said, we have businesses closing because of lack of insurance, but we now have a hugely important industry for rural Ireland under immediate threat, and we have to get a solution to this. And I accept what the Minister says, that we can't force insurance companies to quote. But we have to build an environment immediately that will make it economically attractive for insurance companies to quote at a reasonable cost. We just cannot stand idly by and allow an industry, a cornerstone industry of rural Ireland like this, to collapse for the lack of insurance cover. We will be failing in our responsibility as legislators here in the Dáil if we allow this to happen. We have a responsibility to these industries, whether it is water activities, whatever recreation activity, sport that is now failing to get insurance, or as I said, the equestrian centre, which is a huge cornerstone industry in every county in this country, all across rural Ireland. There's a huge number of people employed in this industry, whether it is involved in livery for horses, breeding horses, or, as I said, training horses. This is a hugely important industry, and we cannot abdicate our responsibility. We are legislators, and we have to ensure that insurance cover is available to all sectors to allow them to be able to continue their businesses.
Thank you. And again, I want to thank Deputy Cahill for highlighting this issue, because it is a very acute issue that has come to attention just in the last number of days or weeks or so. And in particular, on this exact point, I did receive an email just yesterday from one of the county farmers' hunts expressing their anger and frustration at what has happened in relation to this area, and they do highlight, and they say the loss of Ireland's hunting community will have dire consequences for our sport horse industry. Point-to-point racing, the lifeblood of our racing industry, will be immediately devastated. And that's an email I've received. So I understand the seriousness. It's not just an issue of recreation, it's part of the core industry affecting rural Ireland. In this regard, I do want to say, in the coming days, in the immediate future, this week, I will be meeting the Alliance for Insurance Reform, and they have established a list of areas where there are particular problems, and I do want to go through them on a case-by-case in relation to the different industries, some of which we've touched on actually here today, and play centres and outdoor play areas as well as rural pursuits have been mentioned. And we're going to see and talk to brokers to see where they can work collectively as groups. But definitely this is a very pinch point that has been mentioned here now by Deputy Cahill. I'll also be meeting with Insurance Ireland, the insurance companies, myself personally this month, and ask each of those to see how they can actually help collectively in this area. And I do want to say that you do mention strengthening the waiver system. I agree with you completely, and that will tie into the duty of care. That system is in place in many places where you enter a place and you sign a form to say you're entering at owner's risk and you understand the situation. But unfortunately, in the past, when the cases have gone to court, the judges have taken a lenient approach to that, and often not sided with the person who had the injury, notwithstanding they had signed the form, because they said there were some issues involved in the area that they didn't know about when they signed the form. But that strengthening of the waiver and making it legally binding is definitely to be included in the forthcoming legislation from the Minister of Justice. Thank you.
That concludes topical. Agus